Welcome back, everybody, to the Golden Pizza Awards 2014. I, of course, am Whatthefnu, and today's award is very important for the simple reason that a lot of people tend to get this one wrong. It starts as a really good concept, like you've got a game, people think it's really good, and they want to see more of it. They want to experience this world in whole new ways. So, what do? You go in using the modern conveniences of today, and you expand the world. Downloadable content. You all see where I'm going with this. But the thing is, it's very easy to abuse this system, which is why it's so important to highlight the people that do it correctly. That's why I'm here to present the Best DLC Award, or expansion.
Best DLC or expansion. Hearthstone, Goblins vs. Gnomes. The advantage of making a card game digital is that it's capable of things that would simply be too complicated and involve way too many extra components if you tried to implement them into a physical game. Sure, concepts like this were present in vanilla Hearthstone, but it wasn't until Goblins vs. Gnomes that this mindset really started to come into its own. Things like shuffling a mine into your opponent's deck that explodes when they draw it are fantastic, and with a new card type and brand new mechanics all its own to play with, it's never been a better time to hop in while everybody frantically tries to restabilize the metagame. Diablo 3: Reaper of Souls. Let's be real here. While it wasn't necessarily awful, if not for Reaper of Souls, Diablo 3 would have gone down as the worst game Blizzard had ever made. Now comes an expansion that rebalances practically everything, making the loot more valuable, booting the real money auction house, and providing higher difficulty levels that don't just boil down to worthless cheese. It did what every expansion aspires to do, and made its base experience far more worthwhile. BioShock: Burial at Sea Episode 2. Episode 1 of Burial at Sea laid a great foundation, being a more focused and direct interpretation of the universe than Infinite in many ways. But it's Episode 2 that really nailed what makes BioShock BioShock. The most interesting parts of the series have always been the plasmids, and figuring out how to work around your adversaries instead of taking them head on, and this expansion has both of those in spades. The primarily stealth-focused gameplay lets you really flex your creative muscle when it comes to working around the problem that is the inhabitants of Rapture, and a change in protagonist definitely helped it stand out too. The Last of Us: Left Behind. Left Behind is everything that made The Last of Us amazing, and nothing less. It's a fantastic story, wrapped in both the incredible highs and blood-curdling lows that tugged at our heartstrings the first time, capped off with an absolutely fantastic ending. The happy moments are even separated gameplay-wise from the sad ones, having much more of a focus on exploration than anything else, giving you plenty of time to absorb these two characters and their wonderfully cheerful conversations, even if you know deep down that it can't last. Shadowrun: Dragonfall. Dragonfall did something we at Team Pizza haven't experienced in quite a while. It completely engrossed us in its story. It told a narrative in such a compelling way so as to elevate it as one of our favorite RPGs in years. This standalone expansion also made many great mechanical changes to the core Shadowrun experience, cleaning up the UI, tweaking the classes and skills, and just overall building on and polishing up the already solid base that was set. Not to mention the Steam Workshop support for this game is enormous, meaning you will never run out of custom adventures to take your party on. DLC has the potential to do incredible things. It can build on and expand a world in ways that you never could have imagined before. It can give you new ways to play in that world that almost make what you had before seem weak by comparison, and further build that oh so important element of trust between you and the developer, knowing that when they make anything, no matter how small, it's treated with the level of care and respect deserving of the additional money you have to pay for it. All of these games would be worse off if not for these expansions, there's no doubt about that. So which one came the farthest on their second bound? And the winner is... The Last of Us: Left Behind. How the hell do you make Ellie even more lovable and endearing? Well, you go back a couple years in her life, show us how she grew from a naive little girl into a hardened survivor, and you call it The Last of Us Left Behind. It's a very different look into this universe, caked in a veneer that almost paints it peacefully. But there's always this constant nagging feeling that it's only temporary. You know the harsh reality of it all is going to come crumbling down on these two eventually, but every fiber of your being doesn't want it to. It's an emotional roller coaster on a level few games these days seem to be able to achieve, and that is why it's this year's best DLC.
This next award is kind of personal for me, I've got to admit. It's something that personally brought me towards video games, and unfortunately, not for the right reasons either. You see, a lot of people go to video games because we're looking for a way to escape, to go to a world that feels better than our own, that has things that we could never see, never do, never experience in our reality. That's what's so cool about video games. That's one of their best functions, is they can create these magnificent worlds with so many things in it, places that you just want to get lost in for a while. And that's why we're talking about the best ones that came out this year. This is the award for Best Escapism.
Best Escapism. Marvin's Mittens. How does it feel to play a game with no real losing condition, no way to die, take damage, or even be set back? It feels awesome, I'll tell you what, and here's why. Marvin's Mittens was a game made with a single mechanical goal: to create a world worth being in. One where the reward itself was how it opened up to you as you went, slowly uncovering every new vista, every towering landmark, and every beautifully rendered landscape. In search of that goal, combat would be distracting, death would be a limiter, and it would all take away from the ability to simply sit back and take it all in for a while. Something this game is exceptionally good at. Valiant Hearts: The Great War. Now, on the opposite side of that spectrum, a world doesn't necessarily need to be inviting to take you to deeply rich and engaging places. War is hell, a fact that a lot of us thankfully have never had to deal with, but that's part of what makes an experience like Valiant Hearts so powerful. These are things that actually happened, scenarios and situations that real people had to deal with, and to forget that would be to do them a great disservice. Valiant Hearts is a fantastic teaching tool and an incredibly engrossing experience because it doesn't just tell you that people fought, suffered, and died. It makes you personally live with the weight of what that all means. Road Not Taken. Who would have expected the guys behind Triple Town, of all things, to create such a surprisingly heavy and oftentimes depressing world? How do you approach the problem that is being a rescue worker? Do you quit now to ensure your own survival, but leave behind the children still lost in the snow? Is losing a few lives this year to ensure you have enough energy to save more in a future year a fair trade? What of the people you live in the town with? How would they feel, especially as you build bonds with them that could mean the difference between a perfect year and a botched one? And what of the forest itself, teeming with spirits that seem to want nothing more than your demise? The weight of it all stands on the verge of being overwhelming at times, but it's the joy of seeing those happy faces that reminds you of why you're here and why your job is so necessary. Donkey Kong Country: Tropical Freeze. Retro, you've not only done it again, you've outdone it again. It's not any one element in Tropical Freeze. It's not the atmospheric and melodic music. It's not the colorful and stylized levels that are teeming with detail. And it's not just the level design, the structure of which in itself makes you feel a certain way as you work your way around it. It's all of those things working in tandem. You could tell this game's story by listening to its music. You can hear the music playing in the background of screenshots of these levels, and by playing through those levels, even with the sound off, you know exactly what to feel right now. It's an audio-visual experience only a group of masters could have crafted, and a reminder of why our medium's unique quirks are so special in the first place. No two people are going to be attracted to the exact same things for the exact same reasons. One man's escape is another man's nightmare, and what you interpret from those emotions, again, is completely personal. We're all drawn to different video game worlds on an individual level, so I imagine this is one of those categories we're going to get a lot of disagreement on. But that's okay. Don't let our opinions take away from your own. Whatever your reasons for loving one game's escapism over another, rest easy knowing that you are completely validated. But for us, there's one place we'd rather go this year more than any other. And the winner is... Road Not Taken. Road Not Taken almost had an unfair advantage here. For one, this game had an aesthetic that stylized the world both with the right amount of levity to make it palatable, but also just enough grit and shadow to remind us of the reality behind the situation. There are some extremely powerful emotions we're dealing with here, tackling subjects such as family and personal loss in such a simple and elegant way, reinforcing them through gameplay and making you live or die with your decisions. The life you lead in Road Not Taken is a story that is personal to everyone who plays it. Do you settle down and have kids of your own, or do you reject fate in the act of blazing your own path and hoping you find something fulfilling at the end? Do you make those tough calls to end an expedition early, or is the pain worth saving just one more kid? The triumphs, the heartaches, and the deeper meaning behind them all are what you decide to make of them in Road Not Taken, which is why it wins the Golden Slice this year for Best Escapism. I'm personally proud of today's game you might not have tried because many people like to write off mobile games, including myself. It's really easy to get focused on the negatives when it comes to this platform, which is why it's also so worth talking about the games that get it right, and Monument Valley gets it oh so right. This is a puzzle game that will bend your brain. Like Fez before it, Monument Valley is all about perspective. You can travel anywhere as long as it looks like you can, leading to some truly creative level geometry. It harkens to something like MC Escher or a surrealist piece, and the comparisons to abstract art are even easier to make when the whole world is done in such a soft aesthetic. Yeah, you will have to pay for this one, but it's got hours of content behind that cash. These levels are much bigger than they first appear, rewarding you for playing both a little or a lot, and constantly justifying your purchase with new concepts, new ideas, and just straight up clever design. There are few things on mobile platforms you'd enjoy more than this in 2014, which is why it's worth the $3.99 you'll put into it.